In August 2013, Nathan Cleverly made the sixth defense of his WBO light heavyweight title against an unbeaten Russian who was very unknown at the time. He went by the name of Sergey Krusher Kovalev. Now, Cleverly was a slight underdog with the bookies, but most people in the UK thought, you know what? He can probably outbox him. Sergey Kovalev looks decent, big puncher, but there to be hit, never really been tested. And then this happened. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And this wasn't just a battering. This ruined Nathan Cleverly as a fighter, who was a world-class fighter in his own right, very underrated in my opinion, but he was never the same after this. And how the hell could you be? Why Terry O'Connor let this fight go on, I will never know. He helped Nathan Cleverly back to his corner at the end of round 3. Stop the fucking fight, you fat cunt. He is done. But no, the fight went on, and early into round 4, the inevitable happened, and the fight eventually got stopped. Kovalev was the WBO light heavyweight champion of the world. He came to Cardiff, conquered, and fucked off. In Krusher's first defense, he fought against Ismail Salak, who was a very highly rated prospect, but Kovalev destroyed him inside 2 rounds, taunting him in the process. And this was actually in Canada on the undercard of Adonis Stevenson against Tony Bellew. I remember staying up all night to watch this. I put my last few quid on Bellew to beat Stevenson at 7-2. I believed all the hype from Bellew, who of course got knocked out inside 6 rounds. Cheers for that, Tony lad. Nice one, mate. And after that, you were thinking, surely that is the fight to make. Adonis Stevenson is the WBC champion. Sergey Kovalev is the WBO champion. It made so much sense. They could have had a trilogy. It would have been unbelievable. 2 massive punchers. 2 scumbags, really, let's be honest. Stevenson had been inside prison for racketeering and basically beating up prostitutes and lots of lovely stuff. He's basically the kind of guy that you'd love your daughter to bring home. Lovely fella. I'll not have a bad word said about him. But what a fighter. I mean, he had one trick, but it was a hell of a trick. A bit like Wilder, technically better than Wilder, but what a left hand. The way he destroyed Chad Dawson inside a round. But unfortunately, Stevenson fought the majority of his career in Canada. Kovalev fought the majority of his career in America. They were on different TV networks. Kovalev was with Kathy Duva and HBO, and Stevenson was with Al Heyman on Showtime. He also had a Canadian promoter. And for me, it was pretty obvious that Yvonne Michelle and Team Stevenson didn't want to take the risk with Kovalev, even though Stevenson would have had a hell of a chance against Kovalev. It would have been a total 50-50. It would have been an absolute war, and they could have made a lot more money. But typical boxing politics gets in the way, and we'll never know who would have won. And that is a tragedy. But nonetheless, Kovalev cracked on and still had a hell of a career regardless of Stevenson. Fighting against Bernard Hopkins in 2014, that was a mega fight. I remember lots of people picking Hopkins, including myself. I put money on Bernard Hopkins in that one as well. Another wise investment from me, Jesus Christ. It was utter domination from Kovalev from start to finish, dropping Hopkins in round 1. He basically won every second of every round. I don't know how Hopkins went the distance, but Kovalev schooled him, nearly stopped him in round 12 as well, and won wide on the cards to unify the light heavyweight division. And at this point, Kovalev was the baddest man on the planet to me. You can argue Triple G was, but Kovalev was just a devastating puncher. And pretty much every single time he landed that right hand, you expected the fight to be over. He had 2 great wins against Jean Pascal, who fought very brave against Kovalev, but was ultimately stopped both times. And then in November of 2016, we had a mega fight. Now, this was such a big fight against Andre Ward. It was massive in boxing. The casuals didn't really get up for it, but who cares about them? Everyone inside boxing knew how big this was. Andre Ward was stepping up to light heavyweight, and Kovalev was still in his prime for me. I've saw a lot of people say that Kovalev was past it when he fought Ward. I personally don't think he was. I just think he was in there with Andre Ward. He dropped Ward with a beautiful right hand in round 2. But Ward came back and recovered well, to be fair. It was a super close fight. I actually agreed with all 3 scorecards, 114, 113 to Ward, but I think Kovalev has every right to feel hard done by, because with the 10-8 round, the knockdown, and it was a close fight anyway, I think Kovalev could have definitely got that. And for me, that really was a big blow to his confidence, because in the rematch, he just didn't look like the same guy. Ward bullied him at times, and it was a weird stoppage from Tony Weeks. I still think that was an early stoppage. Plus, there was definitely low blows in there that just didn't get called as low blows. There were legitimate body shots and definitely some headshots in there that hurt Kovalev, but it was a strange ending. and Kovalev was never the same fighter after that. I think that took a lot out of him, physically and mentally. But he did bounce back later on that year, defeating Shabransky inside 2 rounds to pick up his WBO light heavyweight title again. So he was world champion, but not the same fighter. Still a bad man. I mean, that power just never left him. But he was vulnerable. He did get stopped again against Eider Alvarez in 2018, who was a big punching Colombian, but quite unknown. And he dropped Kovalev 3 times in round 7 and battered him really. Kovalev did bounce back and got his revenge later on, but he won on points, so it was pretty obvious at the end was near. He then fought against Anthony Yarde in Russia. Now, this was an absolute war. It was back and forth. Yarde nearly had Kovalev out of there in round 8, and this was a prime Anthony Yarde who was unbeaten. He was 18-0, and Kovalev survived and went on to stop Yarde, knocking him out with a jab in round 11. Fantastic fight. But then Kovalev got knocked out himself in round 11 against Canelo, and it was so obvious that Kovalev was well past it by this point. But he did do all right against Canelo, who was never a light heavyweight. But the way Kovalev got knocked out, I mean, that left hook hurt him, but the right hand completely wiped him out. And really, he should have retired after that. After that defeat, he took over a year out the ring. He did have a fight scheduled against Melikuziev for January of 2021, but unfortunately failed 2 drug tests for synthetic testosterone, which was a massive blow to Kovalev's legacy. But he's not the first fighter to fail a drug test, and he certainly won't be the last. I always like to believe these fighters that it's contamination. I just don't believe it is contamination most of the time. Only Kovalev knows whether he truly cheated or not. I'd like to think he didn't, but it doesn't look good, especially after he tragically killed someone in the ring, which was a horrendous tragedy for everyone involved. And of course, thoughts and prayers are always with the family of Roman Simakov, who died tragically in the ring, doing what he loved doing. But that doesn't make it any easier for the family. And I know Kovalev was devastated by it all. And thank God he never failed a drug test for that fight. So we will never forget Roman Simakov. Absolute legend. Kovalev's next fight after his loss to Canelo was against Tervel Pulev, Kubrat's brother, in a very dull fight. He won on points, nothing to report there really. And then he next fought against Ruben Safar, which was on the undercard of Fury against Usyk. That was in May of 2024. And he looked completely done. He got dropped in that fight. And you were really thinking, come on, Sergey, time to retire now. You've made your money. Fuck off, please. But in April of last year, there was one more fight, and in typical Sergey Kovalev fashion, he got the knockout in Russia against Arthur Mann. It was a dominant display, really. He battered Mann, and it was nice to see him go out on top. I just hope he stays retired now, because there's nothing worse than when a former great fighter comes back and is completely washed up, and they come back for the money, and they get knocked out against Jake Paul. And that's what could happen this year, unfortunately. So hopefully, Kovalev stays retired. And it was a hell of a ride. I enjoyed watching him. He gave me some fantastic memories. And for me, he's a future Hall of Famer. He was a unified light heavyweight champion. The only thing missing from his career, really, was the fight with Adonis Stevenson. But that wasn't Kovalev's fault at all for me. I think it was pretty clear to see that Team Stevenson swerved that like the plague. And in the end, Kovalev retired with a record of 36-5-1 with 30 wins coming via knockout, and he fought at the highest level for years. So I thought he was an excellent fighter. I thought he was exciting. And whether he won or lost, he always gave everything. So let me know what you think in the comment section below about old Sergey boy. Did you enjoy watching Kovalev? Was he overrated? Was he underrated? I thought it was really fun watching him, but he was always very beatable as well. So you often find this with big punchers, that they have this reputation that they can't be beat, but a lot of the time, there's a lot of vulnerability there. And Kovalev certainly had that. But my God, in his prime, he was a handful for everyone. I hope you've all enjoyed this video anyway, guys. And I will see you all on the next one.